This is Defiance Daily Dispatches for the Defiant. You got three people on the screen with you. One of them just got a haircut. So this is going to be really interesting today, folks. We've got a lot to talk about. Xander's visage, yes, but also the news of the day. It's Thursday, our least favorite day on Defiance Daily, which means we're really throwing it all out there. We got a lot to talk about. I'm only half kidding about that. We've got a lot to talk about today. At the top of the show, we are going to talk about something that Maritza and Mercedes and I saw yesterday that got our wheels turning, which was a genius idea from the state of California on how to handle Donald Trump's proposed slush fund in the Department of Justice. We'll tell you about that in just a minute because it really is genius and it's got our wheels turning, like I said, about other ways to potentially hold this administration accountable. And then today, we're going to talk about the latest with Donald Trump's retribution campaign and how the Justice Department has apparently opened an investigation into one of Trump's top critics and opponents, someone who he's had a very personal confrontation with for years. We will tell you who that is, as well as the social media platform that the Justice Department is investigating to get the names and identities of ICE critics. You're going to want to hear about this, and we're going to talk about this today. And then with us, we have a special guest. Congressman Maxwell Frost from Florida will be with us to talk about Donald Trump's prison in Florida, Alligator Alcatraz, and the broader efforts of Immigration and Customs Enforcement and DHS to expand its secret prison system beyond the American imagination. But before we dive into all of that today, folks, you hear this on other programs. You hear people say, like, share, and subscribe. A lot of the time, not for bad reasons. Folks like Mr. Beast and others are making money when you like and share and subscribe. We are making waves. We are making a defiance in this country when you like and share and subscribe. You're going to grow this nonprofit club for courageous Americans to preserve what is left of our republic if you go do those things. Very little to ask for to protect the United States of America. So like, share, and subscribe. And if you feel motivated to do more to protect this country, to defend the rule of law, and fight like hell against corruption, then go to defiance.org and sign up, because that is what we are doing every single day. Okay, we've got this first story, Maritza, about what's going on in California. I'm going to throw the baton to you because this one is fascinating. I've got a lot of questions about it, but let's bring everyone up to speed.
Okay, that sounds great. And also, hi, Xander. Xander hasn't said anything yet, but hi, Xander. I think you're the one with the
hello,
haircut.
friend.
Are you the one?
I appreciate the shout out. Yeah, I'm doing a new thing each day. I had the cowboy hat yesterday. I got the haircut today.
You wore a cowboy hat yesterday?
Who knows what'll happen Friday? Yeah, it was a big day. I was feeling brave.
I warned you about that. Okay, let's get to this first story. I'll have to go back and find a picture of the cowboy hat. We're going to start tonight with this political problem that just appears to be getting bigger for Donald Trump and his Justice Department by the day. So last week, of course, we covered the backlash surrounding Trump's proposed $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund. Let's just be clear, $1.776 billion to be cute here. Senator Ted Cruz revealed that Republican senators were screaming at Attorney General Todd Blanche during a closed-door briefing on the proposal on Capitol Hill. Well, now that fight is moving out of Washington. Over the last 48 hours, lawmakers in multiple states, you guys, have started proposing ways to block this, to block residents in their states from financially benefiting from this fund, particularly if those payouts eventually go directly to January 6th defendants. So we're going to start right now with New York Assemblyman Alex Boris. Here's a video that he posted on X about this.
Just created a $1.8 billion slush fund to pay off January 6th insurrectionists using your tax dollars. No congressional approval, no oversight, just pure corruption. A slush fund created by a lawless president for his insurrectionist followers. Today, I introduced the New York Anti-Insurrectionist Act. This bill would create a 100% state income tax on any New Yorker who collects from this fund. It's simple. If you're a New Yorker and you take from this illegal slush fund, New York State will tax 100% of it. If you storm the Capitol and you take from the slush fund, too bad, we're taking it.
Too bad.
So good.
We're
It's so
taking
good.
100%. Okay, so that's from a representative, or sorry, New York Assemblyman. But that proposal appears to be catching on, guys, because late yesterday, California Governor Gavin Newsom announced that California also exploring a 100% tax on payouts connected to this fund. It goes farther than that. In Connecticut, Senate Majority Leader Bob Duff announced he's exploring legislation to claw back every single dollar paid to Connecticut residents through the fund. Duff accused the Trump administration of handing taxpayer money to the same people who beat police officers and stormed the United States Capitol. And then today, Wisconsin Democrats joined the pile-on too. Senate Minority Leader Dianne Hasselbein introduced a proposal to fully tax payouts tied to this fund, while gubernatorial candidates in the state started using it now as a campaign issue. This, though, is where the story gets really interesting in Wisconsin, because one of the people now reportedly seeking money from this fund is former Trump attorney James Troupis. Troupis was not just some random January 6th defendant who just showed up in a bus in Washington, D.C. that day and stormed the Capitol. According to Wisconsin Examiner reporting, he played what the outlet describes as an instrumental role in that whole fake elector scheme tied to trying to overturn the 2020 election. He also represented Trump in that failed effort to get the Wisconsin Supreme Court to overturn the state's election results. And now Troupis is reportedly asking for $3.2 million from this anti-weaponization fund while facing, at the same time, felony forgery charges tied to that fake elector effort. Last year, a Dane County judge rejected Troupis's attempt to get those charges dismissed, And in his application to Todd Blanche for this money, Troupis says his life has become a nightmare after representing Trump and described himself as a poster child for weaponization. Critics, though, see it very differently, noting that Troupis acted as an actual architect in the fake elector effort that led to the whole damn thing on January 6th. All right. There's a lot to unpack.
Let's all just scream together. How often do you see someone who is who's basically on trial as a criminal simultaneously saying, I need millions of dollars from the government for treating me like a criminal?
Yeah. Gotta love the introspection.
Happening?
Gotta love the introspection. My life got worse after I defended a fascist. You know what the issue was? The Justice Department for going after me for defending a fascist.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me if you were the president and you said, oh, well, I think I'll sue my own IRS. I think I'll sue my own government for money. Yeah, I think, I did stuff, but I'm going to sue them. I want some of that money. I want what's coming.
Joining the Nazis was a mistake. I'm going to sue the Allies for letting me go through this. What?
Why do these guys so frequently look like the bad guy in a James Bond movie? It's unbelievable. I don't mean to go after people for their appearances, but that guy definitely looks like is Dr. Evil.
Oh my gosh.
Or a little bit like Snoke from the Star Wars sequels. He looks a little bit like Emperor Snoke or Darth Snoke.
Doesn't
or
look
whoever.
In either case, he doesn't look fun to be around at a party. Not the guy I'd sit next to.
Well, okay. So there are a couple things here. I appreciate that this seems to be the next iteration of what these states did during the redistricting fight, right? I remember Gavin Newsom saying, all right, you're going to try that, Texas? We can play that game. We can play that game. And I really is out of the box thinking. And, the other thing is there's already bipartisan legislation being drafted to stop this program in its tracks, right? So there is an effort. We'll see if it even gets this far. I mean, we've heard people are not happy about this, but I also think when we talk about this money, how much money is just going out the door for things that don't matter to the broad, vast majority of Americans? Not only this $1.8 billion fund, but we were talking about this earlier today, Miles, on the phone, this UFC caged thing that's being built on the south lawn of the White House. You guys know how much this is costing?
What
doesn't look cheap.
F is that thing? What is that?
$60 million. reportedly.
Wait, the UFC is not paying for that? It's being funded by the White House?
I don't know the answer to that. That's a great
Okay.
question. But I
That'd
know
be especially audacious if it was being funded by the
Mercedes,
government.
I'm going to count on Mercedes to fact check this for a second. She says a thumbs up. But either way, $60 million to build this thing that I think is planned to be taken down. Although by the looks of it, I don't know what's going to happen. And I told Miles, like, this, I'm going to get real nerdy geriatric millennial here, but it reminds me of the thing that they built in the movie Contact with Jodie Foster, that the aliens sent her the blueprint. Like, here, build this. Just
great
trust
movie.
Us. Just trust
I appreciate that shout out.
It does look a lot like that. I mean, worth rewatching Contact, especially because Steven Spielberg's movie Disclosure comes out in a couple weeks. Those would be a very good pairing. And no, we're not paid to advertise those films. But we wouldn't turn it away if they want to pay for advertising the films. We'll spend it on the Defiance. But I gotta say, so I don't think that full 60 million is coming from taxpayers. But what I will say is an event like this. Two things pop out. One is it does cost an unbelievable amount of taxpayer money, millions in security costs and planning and logistics, and not just for the federal government, for the District of Columbia, all of those things to do this spectacle on the White House lawn. But second was the side-by-side you pointed out, I think to me, Maritza, over text, which is right next to this big UFC cage fight, huge public event that Donald Trump is happily throwing at the White House, is a giant hole in the ground because he says it's not safe for him to do events at the White House unless he has a ballroom bunker. What? He's literally he's holding an event that disproves his case for this stupid bunker. And that event is taking place right next to the stupid bunker. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I think if weak-kneed, spineless Republicans were still searching for a reason to tell their constituents that they can't vote for Donald Trump's ballroom, he just gave them one. He just gave them a photo for them to say, it looks like the president doesn't need this. It looks like he doesn't need $1 billion to protect himself because he's willing to construct things like this on the White House lawn and hold events and feel perfectly safe. I haven't heard the president say he feels unsafe or scared about the UFC fight. So look, ballroom argument, if it wasn't dead, we've just driven a wooden stake into its stupid zombie heart. And now it is dead.
Well, and in fairness, sorry, Xander, I'm going to talk over you. But okay, first of all, Mercedes did fact check this. The UFC and its parent company, TKO Group Holdings, they are paying for this fighting event. Okay, so that's a positive here, a plus. It's still a lot of money. It's still a lot of money to build this thing. And again, what's going to happen? But I do think we should point out UFC fights are very important to this president because we know that he went to that UFC fight with Secretary of State Marco Rubio as JD Vance was trying to negotiate an end to the war in Iran. And he couldn't even go to his own son's wedding because of the war in Iran. So we know UFC fights are very UFC, important.
Iran, Donald Trump Jr. Although I think we knew the Trump sons weren't going to rank all that high.
Well, at least, we knew Eric wouldn't, but I thought Don Jr. might pick.
These guys are the biggest bunch of cosplaying wannabe tough guys you've ever seen. Think about little teeny tiny Kash Patel and how he brought the UFC fighters to Quantico, the FBI training facility, to show people how to fight. Are you kidding me? Really, this is what we're going to focus our time on, is we're going to bring these folks in to go talk to hardened FBI agents as if they don't know what they're doing in their jobs. It's so completely insulting. But I don't want to lose sight, Maritza, of the slush fund piece, because I got to cheer this on. I've got to cheer on that states are finding more ways to push back against blatant federal illegality and corruption. And this is one of those genius ways, is to say, you know what, if Donald Trump is going to illegally give people cash, give cash for criminals is what we really should call this program. If he's going to launch the Cash for Criminals program, then we're going to take that money away the second it hits their bank account, or at least by the time they have to file their annual taxes. So they can go spend it, but then they got to turn it back in April 16th, April 15th. So, look, that's a model I'm sure we're going to see more of as the second Trump administration continues, and states are going to have to step into the breach.
Yeah. Lynn from our chat mentioned that Trump's also going to the Knicks game coming up here, the finals, on top of all the other for someone so worried about security, Miles, to your point, he has a lot of public events that public sporting events he doesn't need to attend, that he's filling up his schedule with.
Yeah. Sorry, Don Jr.
Sorry. I mean, he's known him a long time, you guys, but
Yeah.
he's a good guy.
Everyone
I've known him a
take
long
to the
time,
heart.
but I just don't think it's going to work out.
But he hasn't had time to go to his wedding. But tell us, Maritza, he has had time to dig back into his past to find even more people he's angry at to use federal power to punish.
Yeah, I mean, if you think of the most petty person in your life who can't let go of anything and holds a grudge, like this president is going to just top that every single time, because now this is our second story of the day. While Donald Trump and the DOJ continue to push hard to award allies through the system, this story is about how he continues to weaponize it to punish those who oppose him or have ever opposed them. Because overnight, the Justice Department took a step involving one of Trump's most well-known legal adversaries. So let's go to CBS Mornings for the details on this, and we'll talk on the other side.
Breaking news overnight on another critic of President Trump being targeted by his administration. The Justice Department has started a criminal investigation of E. Jean Carroll, the author who sued Trump. She won a pair of multi-million-dollar settlements in connection with an alleged sexual assault in the 90s. Our national correspondent, Jerika Duncan, is here. Jerika, good morning.
Good morning to you, Adriana. This investigation led by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Illinois really focuses on whether E. Jean Carroll lied in a 2022 deposition when she said she received no outside funding to pay for her lawsuit. E. Jean Carroll sued President Donald Trump twice, winning both civil judgments accusing him of sexual abuse and defamation. But after her two legal victories, with juries awarding Carroll nearly $90 million in damages, the Justice Department is investigating whether the former magazine columnist committed perjury. Sources tell CBS News the criminal investigation hinges on a 2022 deposition where Carroll said she received no outside funding, though it was later revealed that billionaire Reid Hoffman had paid some legal fees and expenses. The Second Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals accepted Carroll's explanation that she had simply forgotten about the outside funding and found it did not reflect poorly on her credibility, as she was not involved in the matter of who was or was not funding the costs of her litigation.
I do not think that this is a strong case for perjury. What you have is a situation where there was a misstatement in a deposition.
CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson.
One argument that E. Jean Carroll would make is that this is just part of a pattern of President Trump going after political adversaries, not about any facts and law that would give rise to a perjury charge.
Okay, so
wow.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Before we discuss the lawsuit, there have been some breaking details in this case. Just moments before we went live here tonight, the Washington Post reported that the investigation may even be broader than we initially understood. According to the paper, the Justice Department investigation is not just examining E. Jean Carroll, but also the Chicago-based nonprofit tied to LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman that helped cover some of her legal bills. So they're just throwing all the spaghetti at the wall here. And the report says investigators are now examining whether the nonprofit could have directed Carroll to lie during her deposition, with potential lines of inquiry reportedly including conspiracy, obstruction, and money laundering. According to BBC reporting, Todd Blanche is recused from this investigation because he personally represented Donald Trump during those Carroll cases. So, odd that out of everything, this is where they decide to respect legal precedent. But okay, here we go. Let's dig in, folks. Miles,
okay, look, the only two words that matter in this entire investigation are the words selective and vindictive. If E. Jean Carroll's team and if Reid Hoffman's team can show, which I strongly suspect they're going to be able to, that this case didn't just come out of nowhere, that it is intentionally being brought to bring revenge against them selectively, vindictively, then the thing is going to get tossed out the second they bring the charges, or very shortly after the motions are filed to throw it out. This is so obviously retribution, and it's a violation of the law and the United States Constitution, the highest law of the land, to bring selective and vindictive prosecutions. Do we really think that the Justice Department just organically found out about some discrepancy from years ago in a random deposition that wasn't public, that just so happened to be between Donald Trump and his legal team, many of whom are now in his government, and a former adversary of his? Come on, people. Like, none of this is coincidence. It's intentional. It's illegal. And the bigger story here is Donald Trump, in having his Justice Department take on another case like this, is committing yet another high crime and misdemeanor. I mean that. Every single one of these things is in itself a crime. It is a crime to bring an investigation to go after one of your adversaries. That is criminal. That's illegal. That's unconstitutional. And this smacks of an investigation that's designed for retribution. Whether or not the AG himself is allegedly recusing himself from these conversations, if it is shown that Donald Trump had even a shred of influence over them deciding to dig into E. Jean Carroll, then this thing is toast. It's toast from the very beginning. So anyway, that's what I have to say about that.
Scotty in the comments was letting me know this was a impeachable offense. I haven't broke this out in a little while. Sorry, gang.
Yeah,
thanks, Scotty. Thanks for flagging that.
Ooh, thank you, Scotty.
we were overusing
that.
it because of this guy. I had a couple thoughts. One, that news story was driving me a little bit crazy with their usage of the word alleged and accused. He was found liable. The president was found liable in these cases, right? It was just like the civil case equivalent of found guilty.
Yeah.
Well, but don't forget that ABC paid out, that settlement over George Stephanopoulos for these very same story and the very same words. So.
Yeah.
I mean, in another act of intimidation. But sorry, go ahead, Xander.
Right.
Now, the other thing that crossed my mind is I bet this is as much about Reid Hoffman as it is Eugene Carroll. They are starting to be more aggressive at chipping away at progressive pro-democracy funders and the nonprofits they support. You saw this with a Southern Poverty Law Center. The reason they're trying to criminalize what they're up to is to criminalize their funders as well, to dry up the capitalist space. Reid Hoffman is a massive, massive player on the left in terms of pro-democracy philanthropy. And so I imagine this is as much about trying to, if not scare off Reid is pretty ideological, and he's shown himself to be pretty brave in the face of these threats, to scare off maybe peers of his that aren't as committed to funding the fight against Trump.
Well, it comes at a weird time too. And maybe you were headed this way, Maritza, but I'm pretty sure that the DOJ also signaled that they're doing some other digging into Trump's political adversaries.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they are, and I'm going to say that. But one quick point. But Mercedes is going to kill me. But one quick point here. E. Jean Carroll is a survivor of sexual assault, so they're going to re-victimize her. But also, hey, DOJ, remember the Epstein files? Maybe we should be focusing on that. Speaking of sexual assault survivors, maybe that should be the top priority. Maybe we should go after the co-conspirators that have all, we all have seen the documents that talk about co-conspirators. So maybe we should go through that. But anyway, I digress. E. Jean Carroll, Miles, is not the only Trump critic the administration has its eyes on today. This morning, Bloomberg reported that the Justice Department is also seeking names, addresses, even banking information connected to anonymous Reddit and X users who criticized ICE operations online. And according to the outlet, in some cases, the users still have not even been told what crimes they allegedly committed. Yet prosecutors working under Jeanine Pirro's U.S. Attorney's Office are already issuing grand jury subpoenas to social media companies looking for their personal information. The users reportedly only learned about the subpoenas because Reddit and X notified them. So they gave them a short window here to challenge the requests in court before the platforms just turned over their data. And now the administration, like their argument on this centers around potential doxing or threats against ICE officers following the shooting death of Renee Good. Homeland Security officials have increasingly argued that publishing identifying information about ICE agents could endanger officers and their families. But attorneys representing the users say, no, no, no. The government is stretching the definition of doxing to just target critics of ICE. One attorney told Bloomberg that some of the posts under scrutiny were as simple as fuck ICE. Another involved a sarcastic post referencing an address that was already circulating online after the Renee Good shooting. And Bloomberg reports the government escalated its tactics over time. First, investigators reportedly used administrative summonses, which is a word, which is amazing to me. Those are easier for the government to issue and do not necessarily indicate a criminal investigation. But then after attorneys challenged those requests in court, prosecutors escalated to grand jury subpoenas, which carry significantly more legal weight. They're tied directly to criminal investigations. Now, one attorney representing a Reddit user called that escalation further proof this is a bad faith attempt to unmask the user. And even if none of these cases ultimately lead to charges, civil liberties attorneys say that the effect is already being felt here. As one lawyer put it to Bloomberg, the damage to free speech has already been done. And that's I just wrote huge and big block letters, First Amendment, WTF, like we are allowed to criticize our government in this country. That's kind of like the whole basis of it.
Yeah, you know, Xander, you and I have been in this conversation for months and months because, you know, both of us, and I'm sure Maritza, you get asked this all the time, but both of us get asked regularly, you know, do I need to worry about liking a social media post? Do I need to worry about what I'm saying online? What I say to folks is, I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass, and I'm not going to give you false confidence that this administration isn't going to come after free speech. Look at what they're doing. They're going after free speech. Your best defense is not hiding and cowering. It is refusing to be censored. Because if we all do it, there is strength in numbers. And by do it, I mean just exercising your First Amendment rights. I mean, we had assholes on the internet dox us and attack us after launching an effort called GTFO ICE, Get the Facilities Out ICE. Guess what? It's not illegal to go out there and say you oppose this administration's secret ICE prisons. It's not illegal to say you think what is happening is disgusting. It's not illegal to do what Bruce Springsteen did last night, performing in Washington, D.C. and shouting, fuck ICE. That's not illegal. It's not illegal when these anonymous posters do it. It's not illegal when Bruce Springsteen does it. It's not illegal when our organization does it. But what will make it de facto illegal is if we all treat it that way, is if we give in to the coercion and we say, you know, I'm just going to self-censor. I'm not going to post. I'm not going to like that thing. I'm not going to go to the Bruce Springsteen concert. I'm not going to do those things. I'm not going to sign up for that organization. That's when it starts to work, because then they don't need to bring criminal charges against you. You already brought them against yourself. You self-censored. That's what we have to avoid. And right now, we're winning in these cases. We're going to keep winning in these cases. The free speech side is kicking the tyranny side's ass every single day in the courts. That only changes if people decide to self-censor. So I think this is a good example of folks deciding to fight, continuing to fight, and making it easier for the rest of us to speak out. There you go. And Xander wrote it down.
What else do I have to say? 8647. What else can get me in trouble? I'm anti-fascist, aka Antifa, whatever else.
Man.
Guys, we can't put our heads down. That's the only thing that protects you from authoritarianism is standing up together. They don't have the ability to oppress all of us. What they're hoping to do with all this bullshit posturing is to intimidate enough of us so only a few of us are lifting our head at any given time, and then they can oppress those folks. They can't oppress us all. And we just need to keep shouting in our name. I'm Xander Schultz. Fuck ICE. I live here in Portland, Oregon. You can come find me. Just keep doing it, gang. Keep talking.
Well, I'll say I've mentioned Bruce a couple times because I did go to the Bruce concert last night in Washington, D.C. And you had a whole stadium chanting that at the top of their lungs. And
Good.
Bruce said, let's try to make it so they could hear us at the White House. And I have lived in D.C. for 20 years. I'm pretty sure you could hear that from the White House. So I thought that was great. But we have to move on because we have an incredible guest here with us today to talk about something along these lines. Tell us about our final story, Maritza.
All right, here's the primer. We are in it with you guys, hoping to gain some clarity here. Last week, we covered reports that Alligator Alcatraz could finally be nearing the end. But since then, there's just been a lot of muddy water, a lot of mixed signals coming from both the Trump administration and Ron DeSantis' team about what is actually happening at this facility. So this week, our guest today went down to the site himself for another oversight visit to get some answers. And afterward, he said what he saw appeared to confirm that the facility is winding down despite mixed messaging from state and federal officials about actually what comes next. So joining us now with the answers and all of our questions, Florida Congressman Maxwell Frost. Thanks for being here, Congressman.
Congressman, the answers to all of our questions.
Yes, I have all the answers, every single answer I have.
Nice. Good, because I was a little bit lost on the answers. I'm happy you're here.
Yeah, well, let me put that first one to you, Congressman. What the hell's going on here with Alligator Alcatraz?
Okay, so we all know less than a year ago, they opened up this place, which is essentially an experiment in human suffering, an experiment in destroying our environment, and an experiment in completely wasting our taxpayer dollars. So essentially, reports show that they've spent about $1 billion on Alligator Alcatraz. That's roughly $1 million a day since the day it opened up. We know there's been civil rights abuses. We know it's destroying our environment. They spent about $80 billion on porta potties. And so it's a complete failure on every single front. And what's going on is we got credible reports that all the vendors were told, hey, in June, we're closing this thing. So get ready to close it in June. Very credible reports from sources from within Alligator Alcatraz. But then the governor was asked about it, and he won't say, no, it's not closing. He won't say, yes, it's closing. He's doing this thing where he's saying, well, you know, whatever happens, that was always the goal, which is a load of bullshit. And the reason why he doesn't want to confirm his closing is because it's an embarrassment that they wasted $1 billion of our tax money, that they violated the civil rights of people, human rights of people in that facility, and that it's been destroying the Everglades. And so what he's hoping will happen is that it'll quietly go away. They'll quietly wind it down, and they can move on without having to answer for what they did there. And the reason I went is because I want to know if they're actually winding down. And number two, it could close and we'll celebrate quickly, but there needs to be accountability. It's not like it can close and we're going to move on. The law was broken. Our taxpayer money was misused, and there has to be accountability and consequences on it.
So let's talk about that, Congressman, because Florida has already requested hundreds of millions of dollars in federal reimbursement tied to this. As you talked about the insane cost of this. I mean, just on porta potties alone. But if Alligator Alcatraz is now quietly winding down, who gets stuck with this bill? Who's going to pay for all of this? What happens?
Well, here's the thing. Like, whenever you bring up the money to DeSantis, he goes, well, don't worry, the federal government's going to reimburse us. I have two things to say about this. Number one, we'll see. He's been saying that for the last year. We have not been fully reimbursed. And so people know the money that Florida spent on Alligator Alcatraz came from our fund that's supposed to be used to protect us from hurricanes and rebuild after hurricanes. It's our emergency preparedness fund is what funded Alligator Alcatraz. But the second thing I have to say, which is probably the most important, is who cares? Who cares if it's from the state emergency fund or if FEMA reimburses the state? It's still taxpayer money. It's irrelevant whether the state's paying for it or the federal government's paying for it. It's our money that's supposed to be there for emergency preparedness in a state that's having more hurricanes than it's ever had and worse hurricanes than it's ever had. So I don't know. At first, I would be like, well, we'll see, if we're going to get refunded or if we're going to get reimbursed. It doesn't matter. It's still taxpayer money. And it's still money from all of our paychecks, all of our purchases, our money being used for it.
Just to give it a sense of scale, Congressman, I'll tell folks, because those used to be the budget accounts that I oversaw at DHS. And then when I was on the Appropriations Committee overseeing DHS funding, this is an extraordinary amount of money. Like, just to give folks something to compare it to, we spent every year at CISA, the Domestic Cybersecurity Agency, about $500 million on protecting all federal civilian cyber networks, right? So they've spent twice as much money as is spent to protect the cybersecurity of the federal government on housing people at this Alligator facility, because the president is so hell-bent that migrants must be surrounded by death-bringing reptilian creatures because he believes it will deter them somehow.
Yeah, and of the $1 billion, about 400 million of it was to build the damn place. And so this tent city, and so people know, and house is a very benevolent word to use.
Right.
I mean, people are in cages in this place. I mean, it is insane. I mean, it's like 32 people per cage, 3 toilets in the middle of the cage. And like the water source for you to drink is like the spigot that comes out of the top of the toilet. It kind of goes up, and that's where people are living. And originally they said, well, people are only going to be here for a few days, max 2 weeks. It's the last stop before deportation. BS, another load of BS. There have been reports of people being in there for months and months and months and months. And so people know the way our system supposedly works is if you're not found of a crime and you're in immigrant detention, you're technically, right, you're not serving a sentence. It's not supposed to be punitive. It's supposed to be a short-term detainment so you can figure out what's going on with your immigration. That's not what it is. It is punishment to be locked in a cage for weeks or months. It is punishment. And that's why these are internment camps that have been open across the country. So they're going to try to be quiet about it. They're going to try to like wind it down slowly. But that's the reason I went. And I'm telling you, the biggest example I can give you, 2 examples. One is 2 weeks ago, 1,400 people in the facility. When I went 2 days ago, 655. Okay. Second, and I actually even witnessed the flight. There was an airplane on the tarmac, and I was like, hey, wait, turn around the bus. I want to see what's going on. They brought me over there, and I saw them load up a bunch of people, and the flight went off. I asked, where's it going? They said, Texas. I said, have you been receiving any people? No, we're not receiving any people. We're just sending people out. Okay. Then I go to the processing center. I walk in the processing center. This is my 3rd time in Alligator Alcatraz, by the way. The other 2 times, this is like the busiest place in the whole facility, the whole camp or whatever. It is hustling and bustling with people being processed. This time, there was nobody in there. It was completely sterile. There was like 3 staff members like just standing around, and a lot of the cubicles were completely emptied out. So the place to me looks like it is closing down. Now, can something change tomorrow? Of course. But, I do think they're shutting it down because it just costs way too much money for the government to keep afloat. They got their show, which is the whole reason DeSantis did it. In November, he's going to become irrelevant because he's terming out of being governor. So he's been trying to figure out ways to suck up to Trump so he can get a cabinet appointment. And Alligator Alcatraz is that.
Yeah. By the way, Section 8 housing vouchers, at $1 billion spent on that covers 100,000 families. When we talk about them having 1,000 people incarcerated at this facility, 100,000 families can get Section 8 housing for a year for $1 billion. Congressman, I want to ask you, we recently launched a campaign called GTFO ICE. It's an early warning detection system to let Americans know when detention centers popping up in their area so they can join the fight to stop it and be part of all the different bureaucratic interventions that can take place to stop it. You've had success. We had Ariane Betancourt here yesterday. She was part of the vigils at Alligator Alcatraz, part of the impacted people's group that led the fight to bring more awareness to what was going on there. I just wonder, we are currently putting together the playbook to share with different communities across the country on how to shut down prison camps, on how to stop them before they start. What did you learn being a part of this fight that we can take to other places?
A collaboration is the most important thing. And like a lot of times there's not good collaboration between elected officials, organizers, people who are suing, and you have to be strategic and you have to collaborate, and people have to understand what power, like what can I do that no one else can do, right? And organizers have an answer to that. People who are litigating have an answer to that, and elected officials have an answer to that. And the answer for me is I can go inside, right? I can go inside the place, and I can bring out answers. And so what we did, and not just me, a bunch of elected officials, what we did is we went to the people that sued Alligator Alcatraz, which, by the way, the successful lawsuit actually had nothing to do with human rights, because unfortunately, you probably won't win that in the state of Florida because our judicial system is completely rigged. But what they did is they sued on the basis of the environment. And so when I first went in, of course, I was paying attention to human rights issues and civil rights issues. But believe it or not, most of the questions I had in my binder that I had to fill out had to do with environmental impacts. And I remember the staff looking at me weird at Alligator Alcatraz, asking, like, why are you on your hands and knees walking around the silt fencing and counting every time there's a slit in it? Why are you on the floor looking under the generators to see if there's any drippage and if there isn't a thing to catch the drippage? Why are you counting the number of generators? Like, these things that you would never think of, but it was so important to the lawsuit. And what I did is I took the information I got, I signed a declaration, which essentially makes me part of the lawsuit, which opens you up to a lot of personal liability, but who cares? Like, we're fighting fascism right now. I put it in there. And when the first judge put up the decision to temporarily close the facility, they mentioned me by name and all the things I saw. I'm not saying I did it alone. I wouldn't have been able to help out at all if it wasn't for the groups, the Miccosukee tribe, the Center for Biological Diversity, and Friends of the Everglades that were doing it, and the other representatives that did the same thing I did. And so it just goes to show, like, when you have collaboration, you can get to where you want to go. Now, you're not, you won't always win every battle you get in, but you have to get in a battle every day. And that's how the place is shutting down essentially right now. It's public opinion. It's people in the streets. It's elected officials doing oversight, and it's people suing. And when you do all of those, and we all recognize how important each thing is, you can be successful. And people have to realize it looks different everywhere. In the South, ICE looks a lot different than other places. Why? We don't have battalions of ICE walking down the streets, but Florida is the state with the most ICE detention in the entire nation by far. And so you might ask, well, wait, we don't see videos of ICE parading down the street. It's because our state has forced, essentially, all law enforcement works with ICE. 80% of the detentions in Florida are traffic stops from Florida Highway Patrol. So there's not a defined front line like there is in Minneapolis or different areas. And so it forces us to be a little bit more, I don't want to say strategic, but operate a little differently than maybe other places do. And so it's such a local fight. And that's why the collaboration, when Trump first got into office, the first thing I did is pull together all the different immigration groups, people who do way different stuff, and said, like, let's all talk. We don't know what's about to happen exactly, but as long as we're all together, we can respond to it. We also were able to stop a warehouse from being built here in Central Florida as well. They were going to build one of the warehouse facilities here, and we worked at getting the business community, local government, everyone to say, hell no. And we were able to delay it enough to when Kristi Noem was fired and that whole project was essentially dropped, I can confidently say we're probably not going to have one of those here in Central Florida. So a lot of times it's not even about getting the answer, hey, it's not being built, but it's delaying it until the conditions change.
That's really validating to hear. I mean, we talk about that a lot, since we started this project. Running out the clock on this administration is huge, and finding those bureaucratic interventions, depending on where you're at, with the Western United States doesn't have a lot of water. And so if you can fight for your water rights, that's an intervention. We saw that in Social Circle, Georgia. And so anyways, it's very validating to hear that. And I just want to make the point. I think partially why the collaboration was possible in your area is because you make yourself available to your constituents. And so I think there's a lot of communities across the country that would like to communicate or collaborate with their representatives like your community did with you. And it'd be great to see more representatives extend that olive branch to their community and be open to working together in the way you did.
No. Let's be more direct about it. A lot of people are watching this right now and they're like, why is my congressman not like Maxwell Frost? Like, cool guy, speaks normal, has a Back to the Future poster in the background. Like, what?
Just so relatable.
Yeah, who are these freaking robots that you serve with? We're so sick of these robots. Even really good people that you and I know, Congressman, you know, they'll just hop on and they put on this affect. It's like, no, get rid of the affect. We don't want it. Talk to us in a no BS way. So thank you for doing that.
I do have one quick question, though. You talked about, Congressman, you saw people leaving on flights and they said they're going to Texas. So I think it's important we clarify, like, even if this is shutting down, these people are not being let go. They're just being transferred to another terrible place where it's already overcrowded.
Yeah. So I would say two things. One is 100%. Like, they are going to send these people across the country. They don't care if your family's in Florida. They don't care about any of that. They're just going to load them up and ship them somewhere. And remember when that top ICE official said, we want to become the Amazon Prime for humans. I mean, they don't think of immigrants as humans. So they're just going to ship them wherever. That is true. But the other thing I want to say, because when we say that, someone might say, well, then why would you fight to shut it down if they're just going to be overcrowded somewhere else? And so just to respond to that, if someone's thinking that, is the more available beds there are within the system, the more they are incentivized to detain people. The amount of discretion that ICE officers have is insane. Most ICE officers in the middle of a detainment or while they're doing a interview with somebody or a check-in, they oftentimes have the discretion themselves to say, we're going to let you handle this while you're out free, check in with me next month, or we're going to put you in a bed. So the more available beds there are, the more detainments there will be. And so I always have to say that so people understand, because that's why they wanted to build the warehouses. And so shutting down these places is important, and we should still fight for it. But yes, it is true that the people who are in there oftentimes are going to be sent further from their family. And that's why it's really important for elected officials and everyone to do everything they can to make sure the families know where they're being sent, so that way they can continue that fight. But shutting down these places is worthwhile, because you will see that the tension happening in that state or in that region will go down because they have nowhere to send them.
Well, thank you so much, Congressman, for joining us. Thank you for fighting the way you're fighting. We need your leadership. Like, as Miles mentioned, we need peers of yours to also fight like you're fighting. So see if you can fire those guys up back in DC and maybe do some coaching over there.
I think we'll see in the not too distant future. I mean, if Alligator Alcatraz is not imminently closing, Xander and I, at least, and hopefully Maritza, are going to plan to be down there for one of the vigils in the not too distant future. So hopefully we can join you there for one of those. And otherwise, we'll see you here in Washington, D.C. We've got some things that are planned that I'm realizing we should put on your radar screen. So stay tuned, Congressman. Thank you for being in this fight, and we'll touch base with you in short order.
Hey, thank you guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Later.
Really?
Okay.
Like, can we all have congressmen that are like that?
Normal, like real humans? Yeah.
Yeah.
What do we need to do? There needs to be a campaign to go to real humans, be like, you are enough. You don't need to be a robot. You don't need to be with an effect. You are enough. You are better than these guys. Because it does feel like the barrier. The barrier is like, there's a weird trap I feel like we're in. I see it every time I see Newsom. It's like, we both know our politicians shouldn't look and sound like that, but also we are so conditioned to like believe that's what a politician looks and sound like. They don't look like me, or they don't sound like me. And so then they don't even run. They don't even try. We don't even run against these guys. We just allow these aliens to continue to inhabit these important
No more alien congressmen. That is our new fight.
Mean, the president is building a spaceship out of the movie Contact on the south lawn of the White House. So maybe we have more aliens than we know.
Stories today converging. Well, Maritza, if you don't mind, I'm going to take us into who is joining the Defiance today, because before we get out of here, I want to tell you about an interesting thing that was brought to my attention today. Maybe you saw this, maybe you didn't. And it's a concert lineup that lasted about a day before things started to fall apart. And I'm talking about the organizers behind what is called Freedom 250, which is a celebration planned in Washington, D.C. that unveiled performers who are supposed to be performing at a massive America 250 event tied to Donald Trump's push for this big patriotic spectacle on the National Mall. But here's the thing. Within hours of the lineup going public, artists started to back away from it. Morris Day of Morris Day and the Time shut it down quickly, posting on Facebook, quote, "It's a no for me," despite being listed on the lineup. Then rapper Young MC announced he was pulling out too, saying performers were, quote, "never told about any political involvement with the event," and that he hoped to instead perform somewhere, quote, "not so politically charged." And then somehow the story got even stranger. CBS reports that Milli Vanilli was listed as one of the performers, despite Rob Pilatus, one half of the duo, having died back in 1998. And even more awkward, people connected to the group told reporters they were shocked to see the name included at all because nobody had even contacted them about performing. So tonight, Morris Day, Young MC, and apparently at least half of Milli Vanilli are joining the Defiance by not letting the Trump administration or their cronies just imply them into a national performance for the president.
So much nested grifting in Milli Vanilli being listed as a performer and not really. Isn't Milli Vanilli the group that didn't actually sing their songs on top of it? Right?
I don't know the answer to that question, but
Milli Vanilli's the group that wasn't singing their songs.
Yeah, they were the lip syncers. Yeah,
it was a whole group that like the music industry built up because they were like these good looking guys, but they were all lip syncers. The whole band was fake. So to list them as one of your showcase bands,
they look good.
So funny.
Kind of like our alien politicians. They look good.
They look good. They do. They do.
Oh my God. Speaking of which, whatever. I'm going back a ways. But when you were talking about the Republicans yelling at what's his face behind closed doors, God, it'd be nice to yell in front of those doors. Like that's all we want to see, gang. A little bit of emotion. When you're pissed off, you won't. There's nothing to fear. Show us that you care about these things. That doesn't have to be behind closed doors. I mean, I've been so impressed with Tom Tillis lately because he's actually saying this shit out loud in front of cameras. It's been really nice to see.
I mean, we all wish Tom Tillis had been that way before he decided not to run for re-election. But look, we'll take what we can get. And there's an awful lot that can be done between now and January. Not November. November's when the election is. January is when these members of Congress that are retiring or get defeated have to leave. So we got a lot of time here for these Republicans who've discovered their consciences in their sleep to make good use of them.
I'm waiting to see like the fallout still from what we saw Tuesday in Texas, because, this isn't like a new guy who was just thrown out of the pool. Like Senator Cornyn has been there for 24 years. So he has a lot of friends and a lot of very strong relationships within the GOP caucus and the Senate. And I know that there are some who are really not happy about that. So I'm kind of curious to see if any of them really start to see what's going on, or at least speaking in those open spaces, like you said, Xander, because we hear about it all the time. Well, behind closed doors, I heard this, that off the record, they're really not happy, but they're just going along to get along. And so, I hope they start to see what's actually happening.
One could hope. Unfortunately, like Miles said, it seems to be totally correlated with if they're stepping away from the job or no longer seeking office, unfortunately, so far. All right, we got some questions.
Let's take some Defiance.org member questions. If you are in the chat on Substack and you are a Defiance.org member, please post a question. We got Kenneth Gilbert asking, how about the October event that Springsteen announced last night? I gotta say, Kenneth, I was very excited when he made that announcement. And if you aren't tracking, the boss himself said that October 3rd, I believe, he is coming back to the nation's capital to be a part of a concert that sounds like it's going to be, I don't know this for sure, but someone told me today that it's going to be part of a number of different concerts in the lead up to the midterm elections to shine a light on corruption and advocate for democracy. So very excited to hear more about that. But pencil that in on your calendars if you want to make a trip to the nation's capital. But again, I have some quasi inside information that this may not be the only one that's going to be announced. So that's exciting.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I like that. I'd like to go to that.
That infrastructure is so important. Like, not everyone's going to join a march, right? And if you think about like the really powerful movements of the past, there were so many places to bond as people and peers at music festivals and whatnot. You think about the late 60s and how integrated music was to the resistance against the Vietnam War and whatnot. It'd be great. I like our show. I like that we're bringing the news to folks, but for us to reach everyone,
this is the music festival.
I have a friend, Yossi Sergant, who helped Obama engineer the Hope campaign. And he said, politics is where some of the people are some of the time. Culture is where all the people are all the time. And the more that this resistance can get integrated into culture and, events where people can find peers like that Springsteen concert, I think the better off and more likely our success will be.
When Jim Acosta was out here, our mutual friend Jim Acosta, he was talking about this too. We need more of these like democracy palooza concerts. So maybe all of us Substackers need to join together, get people on board. We pitched it, to Pearl Jam here because, the bassist is pretty good friends with John Tester. So we're like, hey, how about democracy palooza? But I think it's a great idea. We just need to find a farmer with a field who's going to let us do this big old democracy palooza event. And we'll just like redo Woodstock.
I feel like you're the plug. If we're looking for a farmer with a field, out of the three of us, you're the one that can pull it off.
Listen, I can already hear John and Charlotte Tester screaming at me about even saying that out loud.
Apparently, we missed our shot at music here. Maxwell Frost apparently can sing. But there was a request for him to sing in the chat.
What? Oh, how did we miss that? We should have called that out.
It's the first time through.
Get him back on. This is an emergency.
Call him back. We got time to take one more before we hit the top of the hour. M. Curtis asks, is there any update on the facility in Surprise, Arizona? M. Curtis is asking about one of the ICE secret prisons that was planned for the town called Surprise, Arizona. Certainly this decision by ICE to go there was consistent with the name of that town. We shined a light on this a few weeks ago as a group. Maritza went down there and reported on it. And Maritza, there have been developments since then.
Yeah, well, I mean, remember, everything's been kind of just put on pause when Markwayne Mullin took over and Kristi Noem went back to cricket or wherever she is. Is she still holed up in that government housing? Has she left yet?
Yeah, well, I guess so. And she's got this weird State Department job as the, Central America czar or something like that.
Yeah. But so when she left, everything was just kind of put on pause to kind of recalibrate and take a look at everything that's been happening. But, we had the two places that I went to visit were both Surprise, Arizona and Social Circle, Georgia. And, think about the billions of dollars they've put into these warehouses. And it seems like everything's just kind of been like paused. We heard Eric Taylor, the Social Circle city manager, say like he locked the water meter and nobody said anything. Like, if I'm the federal government, and this is a high priority, I would be saying, hey, like, what's going on? But it's just like he hasn't heard a single thing. So I think for now, we're just going to take the pause. Like you said, the part of the strategy here is to run out the clock. And I think, people there, though, they are activated. And we saw that when we went down to Arizona, not only in Surprise, but down in Pima County. Where they are engaged. They are going out at every chance they can get to fight this and to band together and, collaborate like Maxwell Frost was talking about. And so they're not going to quit fighting until this is a for sure done deal. But that is the latest I know about.
Yeah.
And I think it is.
Well, the other thing is, there's that, the state AG bringing, the case against them standing up against the facility. The intimidation is being met with fierce resistance in these places legally. And I think that's going to keep the Surprise facility on hold no matter what. But it does actually sound like, Maritza, that the overall warehouse detention plan is no longer shelved. Markwayne Mullin has said it is moving forward full steam ahead. But in these places they have announced where they've met resistance, they're clearly not starting things up fast. I think the facilities they said they're going to be moving forward on are in Texas, where the Department of Homeland Security probably perceives that they're going to have an easier time turning some of these things on. And I would say to the Secretary of Homeland Security, good luck with that, because even in these deep red towns, you got ICE swooping in and saying they're going to double the size of the town and eat up its infrastructure. Look, you're going to get the same reaction that people are giving to data centers that are swooping in and hoovering up the resources. Folks don't like it. It's not about whether they're red, white, or blue. It's about whether or not they want a bunch of thugs coming into town and gobbling up the city and gobbling up the water and gobbling up the electricity and making life more expensive. So I'm curious to see how they think they're going to make this happen in some of these places, even though they are deep red. But make no mistake, this secret warehouse detention plan is going to continue. And I think, we're seeing that issue for issue. Markwayne Mullin came in and made it sound like he was going to bring a softer approach to the Department of Homeland Security. No, the only thing he's brought is the fact that he's not dressing up in costumes every single day and going out there and cosplaying as a frontline defender. But for all intents and purposes, he's continued a lot of the Trump administration policies. Same thing with the Minnesota crackdown. He came in and, was talking a softer tune. But, since then, he and, the White House border czar, Tom Homan, have both said that mass deportation is going forward, right? The Trump crackdown, it's going forward as it was. There haven't been any changes. So listen, people, don't mistake the tonal shifts from a Markwayne Mullin as policy shifts. Donald Trump's agenda and his crackdown is still continuing very much in earnest.
Mm-hmm. Do we have another question, or is that it, gang? Miles, you got our sign off?
I mean, I think we're 4 minutes over, Xander. So Mercedes is like, it's amazing that we're even keeping it in the time.
Bad.
I will say to folks, join us for what is, I think, our second favorite day of the week, which is Friday. Wednesdays are the best because we get to announce actions that we are taking to fight back, which, by the way, if you didn't see our program last night, watch Defiance Daily, listen to Defiance Daily from last night. We spotlighted an extraordinary effort to protect the whistleblowers inside of our government who are trying to expose all of this corruption, especially in the Justice Department and the FBI. Defiance.org members made that happen when no one else was. So we're really excited about that. There'll be further developments there. But tomorrow, since it's Friday, means that we are going to award the Donald J. Trump Soulmate Award to the biggest supplicant of the week who has carried the president's water all the way towards tyranny. We're going to give you some of those nominees tomorrow. And I hope, and I think we're maybe going to give people a chance to vote on who wins the award tomorrow. We're going to try to figure out how to drop a live poll into the chat or to put it on the site. We're working through that. And we've got some special artwork tomorrow from one of our Defiance.org members for these Soulmate Awards. So stay tuned for that. We will also tomorrow talk about the MAGA fails of the week. And of course, our great friend of the program, Waj Ali, is going to be our guest. You've got to tune in because there's no one I would rather do a Friday Defiance Daily with than Waj. Sorry, Xander. Sorry, Maritza. But Waj is hilarious, and it's the best day.
Well, I have FOMO now. I have FOMO.
You can always join. We'll just keep adding co-hosts. This will eventually be. We'll just use the Brady Bunch, like 9 square.
Hollywood squares.
That's right. Well, join us tomorrow, folks. We look forward to seeing you. In the meantime, a big thanks to Congressman Maxwell Frost for being with us. Our co-host, Maritza, who you have to be following on the Grounded Substack. If you are not following her and John Tester, then we disown you. We don't want to be your friends. And, how could I be blunter than that? No, really, they're awesome. And they're such a duo. They're great to listen to. They are often my drive time and my walk time when I got these AirPods. So and nice. Yeah, you guys are so great. You guys have such a good rapport. I just need more Tester tractor time. So, we'll hook that up. And a big thank you to Defiance.org members who made last night's weekly mission brief possible, as well as the GTFO ICE meeting, which we'll be sending out the recap for tomorrow. A lot happening here in the Club for Courageous Americans. We will see you tomorrow, friends, at 5 p.m. Eastern. In the meantime, stay loud, stay brave, and stay together.
See ya.